Savage bolt-action rifles. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics the right way with God Almighty at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. On that, first and foremost, I'm a Christian, military, law enforcement, private security contracting, combat vet, hunter, some other stuff, bio bullet points in the show notes. With that, let's get into today's topic, Savage bolt-action rifles. I think these kind of get overlooked by a lot of people, I think because they're affordable. But they're an American-made bolt-action rifle. They're really good. Rifles that are often very, very accurate for the amount of money that you spend. Savage, I think, often gets let out of the conversation when we talk about things like historical bolt-action rifles, lever-action rifles. I mean, the Savage 99 was way ahead of its time. People talk about, like, the Henry Long Ranger. That's basically a Savage 99 that's 100 years late to the party. The 308, which is a great round. I like the 308. But the 300 Savage was doing basically the same thing way before that. So Savage often gets left out. But anyway, the topic of today's episode is the Savage bolt-action rifle series. And they're all kind of in that same vein, the Savage Model 110. And that could be the 10, the 11, the 111, the 110, the 116, the 16, even the Savage Axis. They all have a lot of similarities. And I'm not the nerd that can tell you, like, well, they changed this screw in this year. Like, I'm not that guy for this. But I've owned several Savage bolt-action rifles, and here's the thing. I've never been disappointed in them, ever. I had one guy, one of the patrons, and he said that his Savage Axis had a feeding issue. And I asked him if he got a different magazine for it, because the magazines are like all magazines, they're kind of meant to be disposable, interchangeable, and he said no. So I mean, yeah, maybe there's a bad magazine, but I personally have never had a bad Savage, from a Savage Axis to really anything. And Savage Axis are the budget version. And I've never had a Savage Axis that didn't shoot. I've never had a Savage that didn't shoot well. Now, I recently got a Savage 116. And actually, I think it's a 116. And I think this is not always true, but I think the one, like the 3-digit, at least in time past from what I saw on the Savage website, dictates long or short action. So like a 16 would be a short action, and 116 would be a long action. Anyway, I recently saw one of these at a gun store for $399, under $400 sticker price. I obviously had to pay tax and stuff because you have to render unto Caesar, right? But it's like under $400, and it was stainless steel, the 116, right? Stainless steel synthetic stock, $270 for under $400. Looked like it was in great shape, and I hemmed and hawed on it. I didn't sniff and scurry, if you guys get that reference, but it's a good book. But I went back a time later after I got paid, and I was like, if it's still there, I'm going to get it. And by God's grace, it was still there, and I got it. So I got a 270 Savage, stainless steel, synthetic stock, a great all-around like hunting rifle, to be honest. There's not much in North America I couldn't hunt with that. Now, it doesn't have iron sights, and it's not a controlled round feed, but a really good all-around hunting rifle. One of the reasons I got it is my wife has been getting into deer and elk hunting. It'd be a good rifle for her to loan to her. It's fairly mild recoiling. It's also very lightweight. It's really nice, actually, not just for the money. And that's the thing about Savage, is what got me thinking about this episode. They're not just good for the money. They're good, period. And I've never had one that wouldn't shoot. They're American-made. Now, they are a push feed. You guys probably know, for like an all-around hardcore survival rifle, I like a controlled round feed. Okay, but most rifles today are not controlled round feed. There's only a few that are. The vast majority of even high-end rifles are going to be push feed. And I'm not going to go into the difference between those two. I've done episodes on that in the past, talked about that in the past. But I've at least talked about it, and I think I've done at least one entire episode on that, dedicated to that. But if it's for like hardcore survival use, then yeah, I want a control round feed. But for just going out and hunting, push feeds are okay. I use push feeds. So they're push feeds. As far as I'm aware of any of the modern Savages, they may have had an old Mauser copy, but of all the modern Savages, they're all push feed. They make, again, a bunch of different models, the 10, the 110, the 111, the 16, the 116, the Savage Axis, and then a ton of sub-variants in there, a bunch of different ones. They make some models with iron sights still, which is great, like the Hog Hunter. Now, let's talk about some of the features that really are pretty cool on a Savage, that really make Savage a good rifle, and not just for the money, but make Savage as a good rifle. The AccuTrigger. I was around when these things came out, the AccuTrigger. This was way before a lot of these other segmented, like really good, crisp triggers were in hunting rifles. When the Savage Axis came out, it was a big deal. Like a lot of people have copied that since. Not the exact same thing, but very, very similar. That Savage that I have now, it has a phenomenal trigger. If I'm being honest, it has a better trigger than many of my more expensive rifles. I like the trigger in that better than I like it in the $2,000 Weatherby 307. And that's got an aftermarket trigger, and I still like the factory Savage Axis or Savage AccuTrigger better. It's a better feeling trigger. It's an amazing trigger. It breaks just about when it's supposed to, not too heavy, not too light. It's a great trigger. The Savage Axis trigger comes stock on, I don't know about all models, but many, many of their models come with an AccuTrigger. It's a phenomenal trigger. Here's another thing. I went to bed this rifle because I have bedding compound. I thought, why not? I got it. I'm going to take it apart and bed it. I took it apart and looked at it, and I thought, I probably don't need to bed this thing. It has, well, 3 action screws, but one's the trigger screw. A lot of rifles have just one 90-degree screw and then one for the trigger guard, like Winchester Model 70 or Remington 700. The Ruger 77/Hawkeye, that generally has like 45, or it may be slightly different, but it has an angled screw in the front, which some people like, some people don't like. But the Savage, at least this one, had 2 pretty beefy 90-degree screws for the action. And where they went into the stock, even though it was a polymer stock, it was really robust. It wasn't like a cheap, flimsy stock like you see on a lot of cheap plastic push-feed rifles. It was really robust, and I thought about it, and I looked at it, and I thought, I don't really know why I would bed this thing. Generally, you bed it to make it rigid and not move around, but it's got those 2 big action screws to a pretty good torque spec, and they're reinforced, like the inside of the screw is reinforced with metal. I'm not sure that I'm going to do much by bedding this thing, so why am I going to waste the time and the effort to bed something that probably doesn't need to be bedded? It's already free-floated. It's got a really good mounting system in the stock, so I didn't bed it. I haven't bedded it. So that's another feature that is kind of a big deal, and it's got really good screws. It's got, the Allen wrench type. Now I have much more expensive rifles that just have flatheads, and flatheads are fine, but the Allen wrenches are better for getting a proper torque spec on your screws. Again, it's a good rifle. Good design. Now let's move up and talk about the bolt. The bolt is different than most bolts. If you could probably picture a bolt head and a bolt carrier, like a proper bolt, kind of like the AR-15. If you know about an AR-15, when you take the bolt carrier group out, the BCG, you generally have the bolt and the bolt face, which is independent with like a pin. It's very similar in a Savage bolt action rifle, and many of them. I don't know about all of them, but in like the 110, the 10 series, I don't know if the Axis has that or not. It might not because it's more budget friendly. Well, why does that matter to you? Well, I'm going to be honest, it may not matter at all. it may not matter at all. If you're just going to get, a Savage in 308 and it's always going to be a 308, it probably doesn't matter. But there are like many calibers that have the same bolt face, like 308 and 30-06, because the 308 is a shortened down 30-06, right? So it has the same bolt face, has the same, the back of the case is the same size. And that's going to be true for a lot of things on that family. But if you want a Magnum bolt face, like you're going to go to a 7 Rem mag from a 30-06 to a 7 Rem mag, or if you want to do something crazy and go to like a short mag or a 375 Ruger or something else, right? Or you want to go to a smaller bolt face. You want to go to a 223, which is a way smaller bolt face. You don't have to get a whole new bolt. You can just get the bolt face. And another gun, you'd have to get an entirely new bolt. So that's a pretty cool thing. Again, that's makes it a really good rifle. Again, that may not apply to you, so that's not an advantage for you if you're just going to get it and keep it in the same caliber. But when you pair that with another feature I'm going to talk about that contributes to the accuracy and I don't know if modularity is the right word, but the customization of a Savage bolt rifle is the nut, the barrel nut. A lot of other bolt action rifles, they just have the barrel screw into the action, and that's fine. You have a good, competent gunsmith and everything, and they can do that pretty easy. But the Savage system generally has a nut, so you get your headspace set with a go, no-go gauge, and this might be above, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just glaze over for a few minutes. But you get a no-go gauge, and you set the action on the barrel, and then you tighten the nut that's on the outside of this apparatus, and you set the proper headspace. Which means with a few tools, you can, I'm not saying you should, I'm saying many people do, right? If you blow yourself up or your gun up, it's your fault, not my fault. Many people do at home, just with a vise and a rubber mallet, change the barrels out on their Savages because of that nut, and it's fairly easy to do. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think the barrel locking nuts are pretty ugly. This is not, one of the things I've always said about the Savage is they're ugly rifles. And the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But in general, they're not as sleek and svelte as like a pre-64 Winchester Model 70. They're also not the cost of that either. But that barrel nut is kind of gaudy looking, but it has a purpose, is what I'm getting to. And you can fairly easily swap out a barrel. Now, if you shoot a lot and you wear out barrels, this is a big deal. You can at home just put on another barrel. They make pre-fit barrels. You can just screw them on there and get it set pretty well. And that barrel nut makes it a bit easier. And, again, going back to that bolt face, you could swap it out. You could go crazy. Let's say you have a standard length action, right? You could go from, a bunch of different calibers. A bunch of different bolt faces that you could do with other rifles, but it's a lot more to it than it is with a Savage. I'm sure Savage did that for their own sakes, for the cost of manufacturing. Right? They can make a bolt and have a bunch of different calibers because they have a separate bolt face, but it also helps you out if you want to swap out bolt faces. The fact that it makes it fairly easy for them to set headspace and do different barrels makes it easier for you as well. So again, makes it a really good rifle. From a practical standpoint, again, I'm being honest, they're not as pretty as some other rifles, but they shoot. Getting to the barrel. The barrels are great. Savage factory barrels, they're kind of known for accuracy. When you hear bad things about Savage, you generally don't hear anything bad about the accuracy. I don't know how they make their barrels, what they do with their barrels, but they're good. They're good barrels, and they have been for a long time. Savage has had a reputation for making good, accurate bolt actions for a long time. And you can't have a good bolt action accuracy without a good barrel. So they obviously have good barrels. Now let me tell you a little bit about this Savage. I've had several Savages in the past that shot really well, like astonishingly well. And not just for the money. Like, again, they're just really good guns. I've had Savage Axis. What's the plural for Axis? Axi? I've had Axi that shot phenomenally well. It's really good rifles. This Savage that I got, I made a load for it. I went out and shot it. It shot 1.25 inches, which is good. It's a hunting rifle, right? That's That's 5 inches at 400 yards. I know we get wrapped around the axle on all this hyper accuracy and everything's got to be a quarter MOA, but it doesn't. For the kind of rifle this is meant to be shot in your shoulder, like standing, sitting, kneeling, prone, not off a bench, not off a bag. That's great accuracy. That was with a 90 grain. That was with a 90 grain Spear Gold Dot, going at screaming high velocities. That's a good load. It's like, that's a good load. I didn't know if I was going to just stick with that load or try something else, but I had some other components that I had bought for another rifle that I didn't like. And I thought, well, I've got these laying around. I've got a bunch of it. Why don't I see if I can just work up another load for this Savage? So I did, and I don't remember if it was first or second. It didn't take me very long, and I was just kind of eyeballing it, like putting the bullet in and tightening it down. I was like, that looks about right. Like that looks about as long as a 270 should look. I put it in the rifle, made sure it shut, right? It wasn't going to give me any crazy pressure issues. I went out and shot it, and it shot under 1 MOA. And that was with 115 grain Spear Gold Dot over Varget. It's not even like that's like a match grade bullet, right? It's not one of these hyper, uber high BC target bullets everybody drools over today. That is fine if you're shooting super long range steel targets. Not great for hunting. But it wasn't even one of those. It was a Spear Gold Dot. Right, and it was I got it to shoot under MOA, and I didn't try very hard again. I just kind of screwed the bullet down. I was like, that looks about right. Let me go out and try that, and it shot under 1 inch. So I made a bunch of it because that's a great load. 115 grain Spear Gold Dot at over 3,000 feet a second. Right, and again, going back to a good all around hunting rifle, that would be a great deer load. It's a bonded bullet. It's affordable. This gun is good at stainless steel. It's affordable. It's lightweight. If you're, a spot and stalk still hunter, it doesn't really matter if you're sitting in a tree stand or eating your little Debbies in a blind or something. But if you're out walking around hiking, that makes a big difference. Now, it's a sporter weight gun. It's a lightweight barrel, kind of a pencil barrel. So, it's going to heat up. So you're not shooting long shot strings with it, probably. But it's a hunting rifle. It's meant for hunting. So 3-shot groups are fine for that. You might want to shoot a couple 3-shot groups to make sure it doesn't wander or anything like that. But again, now I got 2 loads that are really good hunting loads. And a under $400 rifle on the tag. Again, I had to pay tax and stuff, but that's great. It's a good rifle, period. I almost think that if Savage made the exact same rifles and charged 4 times the money for them, people would be clamoring for them. It's like, oh, this rifle is so accurate. But because they're inexpensive, people are like, oh yeah, it's just a Savage, but they're really good rifles. Again, I'm not saying they're the best rifles out there. Again, I like a controlled round feed, but they're an American-made, good, affordable, accurate rifle with a lot of cool features. They're not that much new, and a lot of times, because they're often forgotten about, they don't garner the prices, especially for similar features, right? If you're looking at, say you're looking at an older Remington Model 700 with, blued steel, iron sights, wood stock, those can run you quite a bit of money now because Remington's not making rifles. And people really love those. But you could get a rifle that is basically the same features. Blued steel, iron sights, wood stock, and you could get it in a Savage 10 or 110, likely for much, much less money. And as far as hunting is concerned, it's probably just as good or better, a hunting rifle, than the Remington 700. And it's American-made, right? It's not some cheap Asian import. It's a good American-made rifle. So I guess don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Don't overlook them like so many do. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode today. All right, with that, your tactical tip of the day. We talked about hunting today, hunting rifles. One of the, I wouldn't say mistakes, but the overlooked things, talking about overlooked rifles, overlooked things that people do is they'll go out and they'll shoot and they'll get their hunting rifle zeroed. And they'll shoot, let's say, 8-10 rounds to get the rifle zeroed. The rifle's warm, meaning like the barrel's literally warm and it's dirty, and they'll get their zero, and then what do? They go home and they clean their barrel, and now it's cool. And what is it when they go hunting? It's likely clean and cool barrel. That can give you a dramatically different zero. Now, if you're hunting in the East Coast and you're hunting, inside 100 yards, yeah, it may shift your point of impact 3 inches. Not a big deal. But just why would you do that, right? Especially if you're going over 100 yards, it could be a significant importance in your hunt. So why wouldn't you shoot a couple rounds, get your 0, and then let the gun cool down and then see what it does on a cold bore and just leave the bore dirty? It's not, unless you live in like Georgia and you're going to leave it where it's going to get muggy and nasty. And then I would say get stainless if you can, because I generally like stainless anyway. But if you're going to clean it and have a clean cold bore, then let it cool down, clean it, and then check your 0. Because if it's a hunting rifle, your first shot should be your most important shot. So your 0 should be for your clean cold bore. That just makes sense, right? So don't overlook that. And that may take a while, right? That may mean that, let's say you go to the range once a week. Every time you go to the range, you only shoot one shot through that rifle for 3 weeks. But you'll get some good data on your good, clean, cold bore 0. If that's how you hunt, if you're one of the guys that has to clean your rifle every time you shoot it, if it's clean and cold when you go out to hunt, that's probably the 0 that's important to you. So, again, don't overlook that. Okay, with that, your tactical tip of the day, or your tactical verse of the day. Tactical verse of the day. In famine, he shall redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the scourge of the tongue, and you shall not be afraid of destruction when it comes. You shall laugh at destruction and famine, and you shall not be afraid of the beasts of the earth. Beasts, plural, of the earth. That's so good. Some comments on that. It doesn't say you will not be afraid. That would be an entirely different meaning. Words are important. Shall is like a legal definition. I remember that from when I was going through the police academy. Shall mean it's a shall. You will do this. Shall is a command from Almighty God to you. You shall not be afraid. It says that many times in the Bible, right? That's a command. You are not to be afraid. That's on you. It doesn't say you will not be afraid. It says you shall not. That requires your faith and belief and an action on your part. You shall not be afraid. And you shall not be afraid of destruction when it comes. And you shall not be afraid of the beasts of the earth. You're a man. Stand up. Be of good courage. If God is for us, who can be against us? With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.